Is it just me, or does it feel like the world just stopped making sense? I don't mean that in a dramatic way. I mean that in a structural way. Have you noticed that nothing feels solid anymore? Not apocalyptic, just unstable. It feels like every institution feels provisional. Every headline feels extreme. Every success story feels it's distorted. And people keep calling it a collapse of society, a collapse of empire. And I get why, I understand why, because the noise is loud, the conflict seems like it's constant, and the global mood seems to shift every week. But a collapse is sudden, collapse is obvious, collapse is final. This doesn't feel sudden, it feels cumulative. I don't think we're watching a collapse happen. I think we're misdiagnosing what we're living through. This isn't a collapse, it's fragmentation. And fragmentation creates a feeling of collapse because it breaks something subtle, something most people only notice once it starts to fade away and disappear. It breaks coherence. So let me explain what I mean by all of that. This isn't about being on the left or the right. It's about structure of society. Because once you see the pattern, a lot of the noise starts to look very different. So coherence doesn't mean agreement. It means overlap, shared ground, shared assumptions, shared reference points. You can disagree with someone and still argue in the same shared reality. And within that same shared reality, you trust enough of the same sources. You accept enough of the same rules. You recognize enough of the same standards. When coherence weakens, orientation becomes harder. You don't know which version of reality you're standing in. And I think this is where the society is right now. And that's fragmentation. When fragmentation spreads, everything starts to feel unstable, even if nothing has collapsed in the classic sense of collapse. So let's use a simple example. You open up your phone in the morning, and within 60 seconds, you see 5 different realities. One clip says the economy is at its best. The next says the economy is collapsing. The next tells you that it's only a few elite that are controlling the economy. One clip shows luxury lifestyle that feels unattainable. The next shows someone, who has a graduate degree and is juggling multiple jobs, but still is having a hard time making ends meet. One clip tells you that the institutions are unstable. The next shows a scandal and makes you question what you can trust. None of these clips present themselves as opinions. They present themselves as realities. Now, if you add one more layer, everyone around you is living inside a different feed. So when it comes to social media, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, different inputs, different fears, different heroes, different villains. So how does a society stay stable when people no longer share the same baseline picture of what is happening? That instability feels like a collapse, but it isn't collapse. It's divergence. Fragmentation feels intense for 3 reasons. First, it breaks predictability. So predictability isn't comfort, it's orientation. When the rules feel consistent, you can plan your life. And when the rules feel inconsistent, unstable, planning feels like it's pointless. Second, fragmentation breaks the trust in outcomes. So even when something is decided, half of the population feels it was rigged or it was unfair. Elections feel rigged. Court decisions feel partisan. Media reports feel they're manipulated. So when people stop trusting outcomes, they stop trusting the system. And third, fragmentation breaks the belief that hard work leads to stability. You see someone who went through college and built a career and did everything right by the book and still struggles to afford housing. Then you see someone who went viral on social media within a week and they're making more money than a surgeon. So when rewards feel disconnected from effort, people stop believing in the rules. Now, if we put all of that together, when predictability weakens, the trust weakens. And when trust weakens, institutions feel unstable. And when institutions feel unstable, everything feels like collapse. But this is only a sensation, and sensation is not diagnosis. Collapse is sudden. What we're experiencing feels a lot slower. You know, when people talk about Rome collapsing, they usually picture, this dramatic fall of the empire. But long before Rome fell, the Republic had already fragmented. Political factions stopped trusting each other. Institutions lost legitimacy. Shared norms were weakened. The structure didn't collapse in one day. And that's the part that people forget. Collapse is the ending, and fragmentation is the process of getting to a collapse. And we might be living inside the process, not the ending. And if we call it a collapse, we act like it's over. If we recognize it as fragmentation, the question then changes. Not that is it ending, but what still holds together? Because fragmentation doesn't arrive with a crash, it arrives with distance, with distrust, with people standing on different ground. And that feels like a collapse, but it's not the same thing. This isn't a collapse, it's fragmentation. And naming it correctly changes how we respond. I hope this resonated with someone. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I've linked our new YouTube channel where I will share our lifestyle vlogs and then also our India content. So please feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.